the aspects of the civil code, civil status that impact on funeral liturgies, and the registrar was generous enough to even go beyond funerals and went to baptisms and marriages as well. And then we had Mr. Pierre, husband of Mrs. Pierre, to look at the protocols regarding cremation, burial at sea, burial in the ground, and burial in private lands, as well as exhumation. So today we are looking at another aspect. There are three. We have a criminal code which was revised in 2023. That's the latest revision of the criminal code. And in the criminal code, there are three sections, 566 to 568, which deal with disturbance of services. So any minister of religion who is conducting a service is protected by law and should not be disturbed. But we have seen that we have had problems with disturbances in the church itself, on the church compound, on the way to the cemetery. Sometimes people as well as vehicles obstruct us on a procession. We have seen now a new challenge for us, the use and the sale of alcohol on church premises, near the church, near the cemetery, or in the cemetery itself, as in the case of Shock Cemetery. Not only that, we also have to deal with the use of cannabis on church premises, at the cemetery. And so we thought that law enforcement would be able to guide us and to help us see how we as church can navigate through that. So when I contacted the ACP Thomas, I was referred to two persons, since we have two schools, one in the south and one in the north. ASC, and Anthony Wilson was the one who was chosen to be here, and she's the one I spoke with and shared the information with. I told her this evening that I didn't recognize her because on her profile she's in uniform, but she comes daintily dressed, and she told me she normally, when she's on parade, she's in uniform, but generally when she's at work, she's in plain clothes. So you can disguise yourself well, and we're in trouble with you. So she has brought with her some other law enforcement officers, and so she will do the introduction. Are you going to introduce your other officers to us? Or somebody else you will designate? Have them to introduce themselves, beginning with you, sir. Come. Your office does not permit you to be a shy person. Okay, good.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Normally I don't speak very loud, so if you don't hear me,
Bring the microphone closer and we'll be okay.
very gentle. Right? My name is Lester Byron. I'm a sergeant of police. Now I'm acting in the rank of inspector. I'm in charge of the Marshall Police Station, which is down the road from here.
Do you know him?
I know him. We've been through a lot. Occasionally, he pays me a visit, so yeah. So that's it for me.
Good. It's so important that the parish priest knows who is in his police station.
I am Morgan Jones. I'm an inspector of police, presently attached to Ancillary Marigold.
Thank you. Father George, So this is your reference. You see him tomorrow. Very good, Father. Good. Oh, do you have a funeral? So he has to be very good.
Good evening, everybody.
Closer to the mouth for me.
My name is Alvin Fauché. I'm the inspector with responsibility for Central Police Station.
And your Fauché is from Choiseul?
Well, my relatives are from Choiseul, but I live in Delhi.
His relatives are from Choiseul, but he lives in Delhi. See, Fauchés are from that part of the island.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Helga Emmanuel, and I'm a sergeant of police attached to the Ansari Police Station.
Father Angus, where are you? You know her? You better come and introduce yourself. Come and introduce yourself. Come and introduce yourself. Quick, during the break, all right? So this young lady, this other lady will introduce her.
Good evening, everyone. I'm a bit shy like Inspector Byron, so also forgive me. This young lady is my precious daughter.
And she's coming to this school in September.
My name is Ananta Wilson. I am acting superintendent, now attached to the Central Division. So all the wonderful officers who spoke before me fall under my command.
Yeah!
And we were specifically invited to be here so that you can get to know each other and you will know who to go to when you need our services in the particular area.
Okay, so would you want to, you want to hold your microphone or?
Okay, because I'll need my hands.
Okay. Lower. Let's see.
I'm very short, so.
That's okay. Just come close. Okay. Is that better?
Yes. Nothing? Okay, so this evening I'm not here to lecture. I'm not here to impose the ideals of the Royal St. Lucia Police Force on members of the church. I'm here in partnership with the members of the church and for us to come up with ways to stop the issues that have been getting out of control. The issue of disturbances at funerals or sale of alcohol on church premises. So it is merely an exercise where we work together for a solution. Now, many people say that they didn't know that consuming alcohol on church premises or near the church was illegal. But tonight I'm going to let you know what legislation says that it is illegal. Now, we may ask ourselves, why does this matter? Why does it matter that we ensure that the environment remains peaceful when we are in a moment where, our emotions are high, we have a lot of different personalities and different things can cause people to react differently. Why does it matter? Okay, it matters because the use of these substances, alcohol and drugs, cannabis is a drug, in case some people don't believe it, it is a drug. Alcohol and drugs impair our senses. It causes us to behave in ways that we would not normally do. And so when we are faced with certain situations, our responses would be different. It also promotes noise and causes road safety risk. The law protects worshippers. So no matter where you are on the island, whether it's at your home, in the public, in church, the law provides protection, and we have to know how to safely make use of the law. Catholic funerals are liturgical celebrations, and they require dignity, consolation, and hope. So, we all know that as Catholics, as Christians, we are called to have a certain temperament, you know, and it asks that we avoid excess, and that includes alcohol. We avoid excessively consuming alcohol so that we can remain in our calm state at all times. Christian funerals are liturgical celebrations, and they centered on communion, consolation, and hope. And hospitality, so no matter how calm we are expected to be at that time, the hospitality should never be displaced. And it should never displace safety, dignity, and purpose of the worship. So if we realize individuals are behaving in a certain way that will compromise our reverence, we have the right to call on them to stop. So yes. So the legal justification for saying that smoking cannabis on church premises or consuming alcohol on church premises, disturbing funeral services and so on, is legal. We have the Liquor License Act. It says who may sell, it says where, when, and under what conditions. We also have the Drugs Prevention and Misuse Act. It speaks to possession and supply, and about public smoking of cannabis. And we know that the first thing you hear is that cannabis is legalized, right? Right. But is it truly legalized? Is it? No. Right. There are conditions. And we also have the Criminal Code, which speaks to irreverence, disturbance in worship, disorderly conduct, and noise. It also speaks to noise. So it's not only the smoking and the drinking. It is what the smoking and the drinking leads to. That means excessive noise, disturbing. We can't even hear Father Michel whilst he's, giving his sermon, and people are outside keeping noise and talking rather than paying attention to what is going on, or truly mourning in the example of funerals. So we have irreverence, disturbance in worship, disorderly conduct, and noise. Public order and road and event controls. We have relevant processions where the public space is expected to be in a certain manner, but because of the way we behave, we affect the smooth running of these processions. You all are so quiet. Yes, that's very good. Alcohol, what is the central rule? I know it's up there, but can anybody tell me what they believe that slide is talking about? Yes, you need a license. I'm sorry, you need a license. And with licenses, what do you get? Pardon? Permission. Yes, permits. And you get conditions that you have to abide by in order for the license to remain valid. Okay? And your license that you have will tell you where and how you can sell or dispose of intoxicating liquor. Right? A liquor license authorizes sale in respect of the premises specified in the license. So, have you ever heard people say, but I have a license, and when you ask them for the license, where is it? They cannot find it, or they tell you, oh, go in my shop. And where is the shop? Nowhere to be seen, because it's so far away from where they are selling alcohol. Right? So when you have a license, it's for a specified place, you have to sell at that specified place in relation to that license. So you cannot go outside the church with your cooler in the back of your van or your jeep or whatever it is and sell to the churchgoers or the funeral attendees. You are breaking the law. Okay? But there are exceptions. You can get an occasional license. Okay? It may not be specified to a particular structure, but it will be specified for a particular event. And it has an expiration, a very short expiration date. Okay? So you can get it for up to 3 consecutive days. And again, it is subject to terms. Therefore, a church fundraiser, a wake or funeral reception should not assume that charity or private event removes licensing requirements. Yes, very interesting. Somebody said it? Yes, we are required, according to the Act, to always get permission. And permission is by getting your license. So if you're having a fundraiser for the church,
We know that.
yes.
But for a week or
Any disposing, any selling,
no. If it's been given.
if it's been given, disposing. Okay. So you need your, because it's you're having an event. Right. So the alcohol near churches, so even that you have to consider. It's an important nuance, and it allows refusal of an application where premises are within 200 yards of the school, church, or place of worship. Now, I was having a discussion with our good inspector, reference to that particular one. I don't know whether he wants to share his point of view, because he looked at it at a different angle. Yes, Inspector Byron. When it comes to churches with shops just at the back, no, 5 steps away, selling alcohol during services. And you can come, it's for all of us to participate.
Right, so unfortunately I see some people I know. And they attend the Jackman Church. I grew up in that area, so I'm quite familiar with the jamborees and the vans and the other people who seem to think that the church premises is the right place for them to sell alcohol and to smoke. Every time I only get close to the church when I attend the funeral. I don't go to church, right? But one of the things we have to look at, and it is not only on a law enforcement level, we have to consider what is moral and what is cultural. The problem that we have, and in ancillary, my brother, I see a brother from ancillary, and it's basic. Right. Well, the problem that we have is that we have established structures which are turned into rum shops or bars. And in the case of Jack Bell, I grew up knowing Jamboree shop is just to the back of the church. I spent all my years in primary school and attending church service and this communion and the lot, knowing that this shop is there. However, I cannot tell you whether he has a license, but let's assume he has a license. How do we have laws and then somebody is given a license to sell alcohol, you can say, on the church land? Yes? You find that in dealing with the problems that the church will face, you have to consider what is moral, what is cultural, and what is lawful. So what do we do when we have cases like this? Somebody buys a private property, it is an arm's length from the church, however they have a license to sell alcohol right there. And you know, culturally, everybody wants to make money. So do I shut down my business where I have more customers around just because the church is having a service? Or do I sell it? Because at the end of the day, I have stock and I have to get rid of it. Yeah? So we have that cultural shock to deal with. So what does the church do? Everybody is quiet. When I attend funerals, as much as I can, with my little self, and most times I am there alone as a law enforcement officer, is those who smoke, I chase them. But then to get somebody who sells, especially at a fixed structure, it is very difficult. Yes, because this person will have their license. Most likely they will tell you they were there before the church came to find them there, but they're not going anywhere. Yes. So you have this challenge lawfully and legally to deal with this situation. So what do? The hardest thing to convince a man to do is to change. Yes? That's why people like me don't go to church. And it's very difficult to convince a man to change. So, as a church, are we able to reach out to our neighbor? Are we able to reach out to our neighbor? You say what? Are you able to close down whilst we are having service? But you know, like I said, you have that cultural, that legal, plus that moral issue to deal with. Yes, society is so designed that everything boils down to money. So if the church in Ansari is having service, and then I don't know who mentioned this, but the bar right opposite I think it's the community center or the parish center, as it. Yes, we use it as a hurricane shelter. That building, not too far from it, on the other side of the road, is a bar and a game shop. So when there is service, What do you do? Yeah. Ideally, this is the right thing to do. However, remember the person has a license. Yeah? And it's just unfortunate that even while law enforcement, which will include the police and customs, try to enforce laws, we face our own challenges in how do you ask that person to close the shop. Yeah? For the vehicles that go around, I think it would be easier to prevent them from selling at services or near services. Because some of them would have an occasional license, which is just the license for the day. And most of them, out of habit, again, it's a moral issue that I have drinks I have to dispose of, I need to make money, so I show up. Yeah? On a law enforcement level, it is easier to control these people. But when you have the jamborees and your friend opposite the center, it's more difficult because you have a structure that is fixed. It's immovable. Whereas I can get a vehicle to leave, move from here to there. I cannot carry a house or a structure and move it to another area. Right?
Thank you, Inspector. Anybody else want to contribute to that point? So, the Act says that this is a ground for the refusal of the license to sell alcohol. Now, this is grounds, but somebody who has a license, like I said, would have conditions to abide by. So it is for us now to start a conversation, right? How do we in the future come together to ensure that individuals who are licensed within the area, the space surrounding the church, can work with us? How can they work with us to ensure that individuals patronizing the establishment do not contribute to the disturbances that we see? Okay, so this is something that we need to discuss as part of the way forward. I think we need to come together as the church, as the business community, the law enforcement, come together and see where we can get a practical solution. But like Mr. Byron said, we can approach our neighbors, because until you approach, you wouldn't know what the reception will be. So we can have a conversation and say, okay, we'll be having funeral on a particular day, and can we work together to have, the shop closed? If they refuse, do we arrest them? No. I think we need to use the soft approach, and like I said, sit down in a formal setting and come to some form of arrangement. Okay? So, in as much as the 200 yards is a grounds for refusal, you can find situations where there is exemptions. An example, what Mr. Byron said, this has been living there for a number of years before the church. Before the church came into existence. What happens? What do you do? Okay, I will just go on, yes. And so, when we are facing certain these situations, what can we do? Right? We can say say we're not permitting unlicensed sale from church grounds, halls, tents, vehicles, or nearby event spaces. And we can separate worship from any permitted social reception. Understand? Separate worship from permitted social reception. Define the start and end times and responsible persons. So identify individuals who will be responsible for going around to ensure that things are within the parameters of whatever permission they received to have whatever event it is that they're having. The church can take a stance. No service to visibly intoxicated persons. I saw some people say, Don't you agree that the church can take a stance and say no service to visibly intoxicated persons? We have to intervene early when we realize some behavior might escalate. We need to protect our minors. Liquor license rules restrict disposal to persons apparently under 16, and we need to set related safeguards. Keep entrances, exits, emergency lanes, and the sanctuary clear. Cannabis.
But who does that? Who does that when the priest is on his own?
Right, so that is why we're going to suggest, like I said, I'm not here to impose, right? We're going to suggest ways that we can approach, and so we have an escalation step. So the parish can, or the church can appoint designated ushers who can be trained to look out for certain things, certain behaviors. They can approach, the soft approach. You take the soft approach. You use, calm, polite requests, and if that does not work, then you escalate it. Until you get to the point where you have to call Inspector Jones. Now from the time they see Inspector Jones, yes, scatter. So we're at, I think we're supposed to be at slide. Oh, you're right there. Yes. So that was alcohol. But let's look at cannabis. But the government told me I can smoke. Isn't that right? Didn't the government say I can smoke? Pardon? No?
Cigarettes.
Cigarettes? Only cigarettes?
Cannabis is decriminalized, but not legalized because we smoke in public.
Father Michel said cannabis is not legalized.
It's decriminalized.
It's only decriminalized. Do you all agree with him?
That's what it is.
So what does that mean? Who can tell me what that means? Who can tell me what it means? But you're not reading that with Father. Pardon?
You can, but with limitations.
So you can smoke, but with limitations.
The space, how much labs, and the different.
Right, so our gentleman here said you can smoke, or you can have in your possession, but the inspector has said that this is his post, so that's not what you should be talking about. Oh, that's the priest. I was wrong, that's not what he said. He said it was his priest. What's your name, Father? Father Festus. Right, Father Festus said that you can have it, but the amount and the space within which you have it and you use it is what matters. Is that right? Yes. Right. It's the space and it's the amount. Right? So the Drug Prevention and Misuse Act says you can only have 30 grams or less. Right? It's a lot. It's a lot, yes. But you can only have 30 grams or less. But, there's a big but. Does it the capital not? That exemption does not create a general right to sell or supply cannabis. So even if you have less than 30 grams, you are not permitted to give your partner, say, hey, partner, look. No, that is illegal. But you are supplying, it says you should have it for your personal use. I am not going to tell you how to supply yourself with cannabis. Somebody asked me, where do you get it? I am not going to tell you how to supply yourself with cannabis. But it does not exempt us or rather I should say it does not give us the right to supply it to others. Okay?
The church teaches sharing is caring.
So that is why I am sharing the information because I care about you. And further to that, like Father Festus said, the space is important. You are not to smoke your 30 grams or less in public. Okay? So when you see churchgoers or people who just decide to just gather around just because there's an event and they want to see somebody they haven't seen in a long time, because at funerals and so on, you see people that you haven't seen for years. So they decide to hang around to see somebody, but in the meantime, they will take a smoke, like they would say. It is not allowed. They can take all the smoke they want inside their homes. Right? Right. So smoking cannabis in a public place is prohibited, and the rule also addresses knowingly permitting smoking on premises in a public space. So when you see people smoking in the public space, you do not want to approach them because you have assessed the situation and you realize if you say anything that they might smoke you, you call the relevant authority to deal with it. Do not put yourselves in danger. Like I said, you try the soft approach. If it does not work, then you escalate. If you realize the soft approach will not work, even if you try it, you just escalate one time. Right? You call the people who are responsible for dealing with the situation. And that's why they're here today. You can see all of them, so you know who to call. Okay? Now, Inspector Byron wants to say something. He used to work at the drug unit, so that's his, I said used to, so that's his forte. So he may share something that I may not be able to share.
Well, actually, what I want to share is something that works at Mash. For some reason, Father Festus knows exactly when to ask the police. The police is church services. In the cases where you're expecting a large crowd, the chances of the rampant sale of alcohol and the consumption of cigarettes and marijuana and the lot becomes more probable. So what he does, he sends me a letter. It can be the same day sometimes, but we have a good relationship. So when the father calls, the son answers. So it works, and it is something that I think the other communities and the parishes can adopt, because it works. We come there, and everybody sees the police. They don't smoke on the church compound. If they see the police and they try to smoke, they walk away. Yes? As to control them within the 200-yard space, it's very difficult, but on the compound itself, they bring respect to the service and to the household. So, as you go back to your various parishes, this is something you can adopt. If you need help, my good father is right there, and and he will tell you exactly how to go about doing it.
Thank you, Mr. Byron. Mr. Fauché, anything you know that works when it comes to minimizing the use of cannabis during services and alcohol? Yes.
All right. Good evening again. I believe the other approach for alcohol, especially the licensed premises, those who are already established, I think what we can do is write to the licensing board, the licensing authorities, let them know of the issues we have with those establishments. So they would put conditions, especially when it's time to renew the license, or they would send the police to explain and let them know if they continue to sell alcohol, especially during church hours, that their licenses can be revoked at those days. So what we need to do is engage the licensing authority, identify the establishments, and write to the board.
Thank you, Inspector. Anybody else? Mr. Jones, Ms. Emmanuel? Ms. Emmanuel, sorry.
It's in relation to marijuana, cannabis. I heard someone ask, where are they going to get the marijuana from? When they revised that marijuana act, they actually gave persons permission to have 4 marijuana plants on your premises. So which means you can plant 4 marijuana plants at your home and the police cannot arrest you. Yes, but if you are more than 4, you will be arrested. Now, the irony about this thing, 1 marijuana plant can give you over 30 grams. And you only allowed 30 grams of marijuana. So, which means whoever enact this law, they put which one? The horse before the cat? That's the right one it's supposed to be. But they put the cat before the horse.
But the 30 grams are for what period of time?
There is no specific period. You can have your 30 grams on you, the police will stop you, they cannot, well, they should not arrest you. But a smart officer can arrest you and say you didn't have a skill.
And that's why you must be careful. Don't plant your 4 plants, put it together, end up with 1 gram over. Guys, 1 gram over because you didn't weigh it properly. Okay? So, what does that mean for the church authorities? Right? It means that policy can be stricter. I'm not telling the church what to do. I'm just suggesting. Right? I'm just recommending that a written parish rule is put in place. And you put your signs. No cannabis smoking on church property. No unlicensed alcohol sales. No aggressive or disruptive conduct. No obstruction of emergency access. As you know, sometimes you want to pass your skip by, even under normal circumstances, and you can't. Far less if there's an emergency. So other people who refuse to sit in the church when Father Albert is admonishing us. I was speaking to all the people who refuse to sit inside. Please do not block the emergency access. Do not block the doors. Do not stand and congregate outside. Sit inside and listen and take our admonishment with reverence. Volunteers should not search people or physically intervene unless lawfully authorized and trained. So earlier I said, in response to Father's question, I said we can train ushers, to have them know what signs to look for when something looks like it's going to get out of hand. we can train them to ensure that people abide by the clearly written rules. So we can have signs. That's the first line. You put up signs. So some people do abide by written rules. They come, they see a notice. Some people do obey. And of course, you will find some people who will not. So then that's where the soft approach comes in. The trained usher will go, say, excuse me, we have a sign, we do not allow smoking on premises, can you move away? Some people will quarrel, they'll mumble, but they will still move away. Some will watch you, and by the time they watch you, they don't need to say anything. You know you have to move away and get help. Okay? So do not try to grab the person and make them move. Don't do that. Do not put yourselves in danger. Okay? So the key point, do not try to legalize marijuana. Cannabis, do not try to legalize it. Just because you are allowed to have your 30 grams, do not bring it in the church with you. Do not go outside the church. Do not smoke it around the church. Okay? Anybody has any question for me? Not questions. It's not the end. But in case anybody has anything to break up me being the only one on the spot, all eyes on me. Nobody? Okay. So again, the church can have stricter rules in place than those smoking signs and possession, etc. Like I said, put the rule in writing, so you have your signs up. It's if you suspect supplying and trafficking is involved, preserve evidence and contact the police rather than confronting a group alone. I have said it. Do not put yourselves in danger. Do not try to approach a situation that you do not believe you are able to control. We have the authorities for that. So if the soft approach is not going to work, what do they say? Pardon? Right, escalate. And by escalate, I mean call the relevant authorities. Right. Pardon? Okay. Don't worry, Inspector Byron said he's just down the road. Didn't he say that? So he can walk. Yes. What's about the what? Oh, don't worry, we'll find a way at the time. Okay? So do not say, I will approach the person because the police will tell me they have no vehicle. Unless you call the police, you will not know whether they have vehicle or not. Okay? So do not put yourselves in danger. Call the police.
So what happened to the mobile drum shops at the cemetery?
Like I said, remember I said earlier that people need to have licenses. For example, occasional license. Right? So the mobile rum shops need to be licensed too. So that is where the soft approach comes in first. You can ask questions. Do you have a license? No, if you have a license, who is named on the license? Because some people apply for licenses, but they have somebody else selling for them, right? So you find out all the particulars, and you keep the information and you relay to the police. So one of the things that can happen is that the police can, and that is one of the suggestions that will come out, where there will be a partnership formed. The police will have a liaison officer with the parish, the different parishes will have their liaison officer, and they can inform the police of upcoming events, and so the police.
Community announcement. TQ 3016. TQ 3016. Could you move your vehicle to allow somebody to make an exit, please? Thanks.
There will never be. I forgot what I was saying.
I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. So you see, you all paying attention. I'm so happy. So, like I said, we'll have liaison officers where the parish, the different parishes can contact the liaison officers and provide the information of upcoming events. And that will be a proactive approach where the police will be able to do periodical patrols when there is an event, for example, a funeral, so they will be able to go by and ensure that individuals are not selling alcohol when they're not licensed before, they're not on the church premises smoking and drinking. That's one of the suggested approaches that I guess I'm already giving it now. So that is one that we believe will work. So we have started the process. I know for Central Police Station, Mr. Fauché may not know, but I know the admin sergeant. The admin sergeant at Central has already started. So it will continue where everyone will be giving their contact information and so on, so they can contact the police in the relevant spaces. Yes, Father? The deacon, sorry.
There is another one, draft. This one there. You could hold it, but put it on. Put it on.
Test it. Thank you. Thank you very much for the presentation. I have a concern as one of the ministers who would be at the shock cemetery and so on. I'm hearing, they can use the soft approach and try to do the best you can, but that's a difficulty at shock. We feel very unsafe many of the times. We can't go and try a soft approach with the individuals who are there. Okay? For instance, the sale of alcohol and the licensing for it is not us to deal with. It is a problem at shop. So much so right now, you can't even access the cemetery very well because of the congestion that is taking place right in the area of parking and maneuvering and so on. Even the hearse at times is having difficulty because of this trading that is taking place there. So that's one, okay? I don't feel that it's for me to try any soft approach with that. I believe the authorities can see that for themselves. Amen? Amen. Right. Next thing is, my wife constantly asking me, I have to say this, constantly asking me, why is it after a funeral at Shock, and I go to Shock Cemetery, I'm coming home smiling? Why is it I am insisting that I need a lot more food?
You're smoking without smoking.
Listen, this thing is around us. There is no soft approach. As a matter of fact, what I'm being told at Shock is, or some individuals would announce, let the minister do what it is he has to do, and we will get on to our business when he finishes. That is my experience at Shock. They don't have no 200 yards or how many 100 yards. This thing does not exist. Who is responsible for policing what is happening at Shock? Yeah. Next thing. I'm sorry, I have a few because I'm encountering this thing regularly. Okay? Next thing. I want to know what the policy is in respect to murders and so on. Individuals have to be buried in terms of viewing within the church, specifically for me, within the cathedral. Is it allowed? I have heard that the casket must remain closed and it should be all the way up towards the altar rail. Nobody is supposed to be viewing. If that is the case, and viewing begins, who puts it to an end? I ask the question, if they say that a law enforcement officer must be present at the cathedral and at the Shock Cemetery, Where is the law enforcement officer when I'm doing one of these funerals? Why are we saying these things are supposed to be happening and we not receiving the back end? It's a scary thing when you go to the shock cemetery to perform a burial and you know the situation with the deceased who is to be buried and the circumstances surrounding it, and you're seeing all kind of people there around you. You don't know what to expect because the violence it happens. We know that. So if somebody is supposed to be present, why isn't the person not being present? The officer I'm talking about specifically, why not there? And why I have to continue going to my home smiling at my wife as soon as I walk through the door? I mean smiling unnecessarily, okay? Thank you.
Turn it up, I think points taken, John, but you know what? Let us reserve those comments or the questions for the end. I want to make sure that ASP was in complete, otherwise it will get exciting, yeah? And then time will go by, excuse me, and we will not complete. So let her finish up. Do you want to answer that? And then you will continue your presentation.
Yes, I can.
And at the end of the presentation, then we will invite questions and comments. So you can answer him to relieve his spirit and well, the smile, you can't help it if he's inhaling. So he's inhaling and he's high. So he's going home happy.
I guess you can tell your wife that you have smoked involuntarily, and that's why you are smiling. But I understand your plight because I know how that smoke, the smell can affect your smiles. In terms of the permission or allowing individuals to view during services for victims of homicides and so on, I cannot speak too much to it, but I will find out to what extent it is allowed or not allowed, and I have father's contact. I will pass on the information. In terms of the officers being present, they are present. Yes, they are. The investigating officer for matters where individuals are murdered, in homicides, the investigating officers are usually, and I can always say always because it is a requirement that they are there. But just like me, yes. So you may not realize that the officer is there, but they're in plain clothes. Most times they are in plain clothes and you wouldn't know.
I have had the experience as an animator, and then we will speak about that.
Proceed.
Okay, and we will work on the issue at SHOP. As I indicated, we have started the process where information can be shared in advance so that things can be put in place to tackle the issue. So we go through this. And so the specific sections of the criminal code, and the criminal code is the book of law. Well, one of the books of law that tells us what we can and cannot do, and what will happen to us if we do what we're not supposed to do. So the specific sections that deals with disturbances at services, you have 566, and it speaks to irreverent behavior near a church, place of worship during divine service, or indecent, irreverent behavior near a public burial, and it says that it is an offense. Okay. Section 567 also says that disturbing or molesting a person in a public place of divine worship, or riotous, indecent, disorderly, insulting conduct is also an offense. Section 568 says that disturbing or molesting a minister, causing the minister to smoke without him wanting to, causing him to go home and his wife is asking him questions. Okay? By smoking, you are disturbing the minister because the smoke is coming into his nostrils. Right? So it says that disturbing or molesting a minister or others attending a religious rite in a public way or place is an offense. So it is not just a church or funeral, right? And it doesn't mean that just because it's a church or funeral, that's what it is, it's a church or funeral, that you have to ignore disorder. Okay? It is not just church or funeral. It is a public place where individuals are expected to feel safe and to not be exposed to substances that will alter their emotions or their thoughts and so on. Some of the risks we see. So the noise and disorder in public place. So apart from smoking and drinking, some people are just loud. Some people, they do not need any drink or any drug in their system. They are just loud. And some people do not filter as to when and where they behave in what manner. And so the code provides that disorderly conduct in a public place, or having noise, having a loudspeaker. You see these individuals with their vehicles, and you swear it's a carnival truck passing. Right? That is not allowed. It has to be controlled. Loudspeakers in the street, public or political meetings generally require a prescribed permit, and there are exemptions that apply. But I should not just install a loudspeaker in my vehicle and just parade around, disturbing the peace. A disturbance may be a venue management problem, or public order problem, or criminal offense, or it is all of them at once. It is for us to know what we can do in the different situations. And if we don't know at the time, what do? We call the police. We document and then call the police. Okay? Sometimes we are called, and when we respond and we ask certain questions, we cannot get the answers that will enable us to act. Okay, so you may see something happening and you are anxious, you call the police, but you forgot to take note of the important things that the police would need to be able to act, because remember, it's happening when the police is not there. So sometimes you have to document so that when they come, you can give them specifics. For example, time, location, behavior, witnesses, and that one is important. If you realize that there is somebody there who witnessed an event, and you know the person, when the police comes, you can tell the police that person was there so that the police can approach the person as a witness. Warnings, injuries, damages, and evidence. So physical evidence that you may have, or you may find, you can preserve it so that when the police comes. But again, don't get me wrong. Do not put yourself in danger. I think I've said that so many times. Do not put yourself in danger. So when you are shocked and you realize that you cannot use the soft approach, you do not try to use it. You call the police. Funeral specific risks. You know, that's the time people's emotions are not as it usually would be. That's the time you find that family members and friends sometimes don't see eye to eye because of whatever has come out because of, you know, what is happening. And so you find that there may be conflict between family members. You know, you have that side of the family doesn't agree with the other side of the family as to what casket was purchased. And so they are already in high emotions. And by the time they get to the church, it's catechizing and mumbling, just disturbing the service. Right? So we know that these are risks that comes with the environment. And when you add the use of alcohol or drug to it, it gets even worse. Okay? I work in Castries in the city. And anytime I pass and I see that there's a funeral service, guess what I say to myself? Guess what I say to myself? I want to get out of town before the service finishes because of the traffic. So this takes me to the third line, that when you have service, especially in the city, it will cause congestion when it comes to the traffic. And then that also contributes to unsafe driving because people want to get through. They want to get, you know, wherever they're going. And just imagine they're already a little buzzed from the alcohol or whatever it is that they consume. Right? So these are risks that comes with the territory. You have unplanned crowd around the church and the cemetery. There are social media provocation, threats, or disputes spilling into the funeral. Right? Not only with family members, but depending on what happened, and I guess that's one of the fears that Deacon had, you know, certainly depending on what the cause of death was, you fear that individuals who may be of certain faction would come in and cause some kind of, you know, unsafe environment during service. Right? But all in all, we have to safeguard the bereaved. We have to use calm, and I know some people believe that it's not going to work, but we must always try. Use calm, respectful intervention, and avoid unnecessary escalation. Okay? What church members can do? Okay. A joint prevention model before, during, and after. Right? So I think somebody asked, what do we do in certain situations? Before the event, you send out notifications. The liaison officer is there. Now, if you cannot get the liaison officer, that doesn't mean that you should not send the notification. You can just call the police, call anybody. Just call any police number and tell them this is the situation. They will get to the liaison officer and give them the information. Okay? So, event notification, risk assessment. You look at the area. What jurisdiction does it fall under? What is the area known for? Is the area known for a lot of gathering of individuals during service? And what are the behaviors during the gathering? Look at the traffic route when coming to or leaving the church. Will there be a lot of congestion and put people more at risk? Have a responsible church contact, license checks, traffic plan emergency contacts. Okay, that's before the event. Depending on the individual whose service we're attending, we know to expect certain sizes of attendees. Or even if they're not attending, but they're observers. And so beforehand, we can put things in place to minimize the risks that may come up. During the event, you have visible, proportionate police presence. Okay, so it comes back to the notification beforehand. So you have the police presence, you have stewards, ushers who can assist, you have alcohol and cannabis controls in place, early de-escalation, traffic management. After, you have an incident brief, evidence reporting, referrals, repeat problem mapping, agreed corrective action. And here, I can suggest that we can have a committee in place specific to that point. So you can have members of the church, members of law enforcement, the different sections of the law enforcement, whether it is for traffic management, whether it is for license checks, or whether it is just to enforce the laws. So you can have members come together and look at the specific problems that keep repeating themselves so that you can come up with a solution to tackle that problem. And we can use the smallest effective interventions that restore safety and dignity. We can. Okay. What church members can do, and it's going to be a repetition. I've said it before, said no sale, no smoking, no disorder signs for church property unless expressly authorized by law and church liberty. So the church can have this as a policy, put it in place so that attendees, church members and so on will be fully aware beforehand of what the church expects. Use trained ushers, stewards, never ask volunteers to physically confront intoxicated or aggressive persons. Like I said, stay safe, do not put yourself in a situation where you will be harmed. Identify a single church liaison for police during major service funerals. And this is important because you do not want a situation where multiple people are calling to give information, and then at the end of it, the information is not accurate or it's misunderstood. So having one point of contact minimizes misunderstandings or the wrong message being sent across. Report early before a disagreement becomes a fight. So if you notice something is brewing in the back of the church or just outside the door, you do not just stay and watch and say, okay, they will resolve it. And then by the time you check yourself, it's out of order. Okay. Protect vulnerable people, children, elderly mourners, persons with disabilities, and grieving family members. Sometimes we are so engrossed in what's happening that we forget we have children among us that we need to get away from the situation. So if you realize some, commotions in the back, look out for the children, look out for the elderly, take them to a safe space. And after you've done that, you can see how you can assist in de-escalating the situation safely. What can the police do? Again, a liaison. So you have the church liaison, you also have the police liaison. And again, with the committee, you can have regular meetings with the clergy, the parish safety contacts. Event safety plan. So before the event, you'll come together and put a plan that will ensure that risks are minimized. Right? You identify emergency access and escalation thresholds. You have your plan in place. It will tell you what your traffic plan, in place. It will tell you what road to use. It will help the police. The police will be able to tell you, okay, that road will be blocked off, and so no traffic will be able to go through there, so you have to use that route and so on. It is just a matter of coming together and putting the plan into place. Identify repeat locations, times, and address with causes, with partners, Again, it's a repetition. I think I've said it before. We come together, we identify the issue, and we come with a solution that will benefit all of us. Because when the church is happy, the police is happy. Yes. And it is our belief that when we start doing these things, it will lessen the occurrences and it will not require us to be there as much as in the beginning. So it may be a difficulty in the beginning, but once we stick to it, I am certain that it will help in the long run. Joint compliance operations with relevant regulators or licensed alcohol or regulated substances are suspected. After action review, turn incidents into prevention measures. So, corresponding slide. Yes. So the RSLPS PF has publicly described the partnership with faith-based organizations. I think you all have heard our Commissioner on countless times say that we work together with the community, and the church is no different. The church is part of the community. And so we come together to prevent crime. And this session is just one of the ways that we can start working towards preventing the specific crime that we are speaking to today. For officials in the funerals and so on, the RSLPF has used advanced public traffic advisories and route management to reduce disruption. So when we have state funerals, we have plans in place, we have traffic plans in place for the funerals. This can work for large-scale funerals, even if it is not a state funeral, so we can look at that particular aspect and apply it. Carnival security plans also illustrate that coordinated event policing, planning, visible presence, public cooperation, and traffic management work. Okay, so the carnival plans take into consideration everything. It takes into consideration traffic, security, health, emergency access vehicles, and all of that. So even if it's not at the same scale, we can draw something from it that will work for our purpose. And again, the lesson is plan before the event, communicate clearly, and use partnership rather than waiting for the crisis. So we have 3 scenarios for discussion. Who's ready for the test? Okay, so you have a church fundraiser, a volunteer sells beer from a tent on church grounds. What should happen before the event? Pardon? I keep hearing provisional license, but I'm not hearing the rest. Apply for an occasional license. That is the person who wants to sell. What else should happen before that? Pardon? Anybody else want to add to?
Inform the nearest police station.
Inform the nearest police station. Yes. Anything else? Nemo. So remember, it's a volunteer selling from a tent. Right, so we noticed that the volunteer has set up the church. The event has not started. Remember, it's from a tent on church grounds, right? What should happen before the event? No outsiders. So before the event, you make sure you put all your signs in place, right? You let it be known clearly that it will not be accepted, right? And you communicate with your church members. You tell them that you're having an event, but certain behaviors will not be accepted, right? Scenario B, funeral. A group outside the church is smoking cannabis, drinking and shouting during the service. What is the safest sequence of action? Pardon? Just call the police. That's the safest thing. It is the safest one. Because their emotions are already high, and you don't want to risk approaching them and putting yourself at risk. So you call the police. But don't forget, before you call the police, what do you do? Some people may feel safe enough to try the soft approach, if that's the case, yes. But don't forget, when the police comes, they need what? Information, yes. So you document, you take note of what is happening so that when the police comes, you can say, well, we have signs right there, and they keep making noise right by the sign. It was at that time, they were cussing out and saying this and that, and so the police has the evidence. After burial, a fight begins near the cemetery, and vehicles block the road. Who calls whom? What evidence matters, and what should the stewards avoid? Everybody will run and hide in their vehicles and let the fight continue. That's the safest thing to do, right? Pardon? You call the police, right? Because they are already fighting, right? The vehicles are blocking. You call the police. But who calls the police? Who? But they are too busy getting blows for them to call. And by the time you check yourself, you might be the one getting blows too. You get away? You go. Right. So anybody who witnesses a fight can call the police. Because remember, like she said, after the burial, she gone. Most people, they don't stick around and stuff. But anybody who witnesses that can call the police. Okay? And what evidence matters, make sure you take the description of the people who were fighting. Yes. Document that so when the police comes, they can get that information. And the stewards should avoid separating the fight, because you might end up being hurt. Okay? So a simple escalation ladder in non-threatening situations. I repeat, do not put yourselves at risk. Okay, so a simple escalation ladder is to prevent. So you apply your rules, you lay it out, you communicate it, you have your stewards to enforce. Okay, you have your signs and so on. You redirect, you are facing a situation, you approach in a calm, give calm verbal instruction and separation, and let it be clear that there is a separation from the activity, whatever is happening, and worship. Okay? You know that people say, I match your energy. You heard of that? I match your energy. So if people are shouting and getting on, and you approach them shouting and getting on, it will be more shouting and getting on. So be calm when approaching the individuals. Call the police. Right? Police and appropriate regulators are the ones responsible for ensuring that when there is a risk, or when an offense is being committed, or when non-compliance is present, that they enforce whatever laws or rules that apply. You protect, again, don't forget the children and the elderly. When the fracas starts, put them in a safe place so that they do not get hurt. Preserve access and prevent escalation. Do not join the fight. If you realize your brother is getting blows, don't say, I just wanted to help my brother, because you will end up being taken up to task for fighting. Fighting is illegal. Do you all know that? Pardon? Illegal. It's an offense to fight. So do not fight. Okay? Record, document facts, and preserve evidence. Now, I think that's important to reiterate. Document facts. A lot of times, people approach you and they tell you, yes, yeah, that one is that one punch. When you question them, they never saw the punch. They never saw the punch, but they will tell you that one did that one punch because they heard somebody else say it. And that may never be true. The person probably never got a punch. So that's why it's important to document facts. So if you are reporting to the police about some incident, make it clear that you did not see it yourself, but you heard somebody say that this is what happened. Do not report it as if you saw it happen, right? Because this may cause issues later on down the line when the police is trying to gather the right evidence as to what exactly happened. So if you heard, tell the officer, I heard somebody say that the man was walking and the fellow just punched him in the head. Officer, I didn't see it, I am not sure that this is what I heard. Do not come and say, officer, the man was walking in and they were just punching me. And the officer said, that's true. So where were you when that happened? Me? I was in my shop. But when I go outside, I hear people talking. You know? So always document facts. If you didn't see it, do not present it as if you saw it. If you do not know it, do not present it as if you know it. Review, agree what changes before the next service or event. So you do a debrief and you identify all the gaps, identify all the places for improvement, and you make a commitment to implementing these before the next event so that the problem does not arise again. Okay? Key takeaways. Sacred spaces does not mean law-free. Just because you're in the church doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want and say that God will forgive you. No, this is not law-free. The law applies wherever you are. It means safety must be handled with added dignity. Okay? So if you're going to be reckless about safety outside, ensure that when you get inside, the recklessness is gone. You handle your safety with added dignity. Unlicensed alcohol sale and unlawful cannabis supply are not solved by church permission. Okay, so do not say that, hey, but every day I sell in the head of Christmas. Never tell me anything, huh? You hear that all the time. When something keeps happening and it is not, there is no intervention, the moment you try to intervene, people will tell you, but I've been doing it for so long. How come only today? Or you have something against me? You must expect these things, but you must keep steadfast and say, well, it was happening in the past. Today is not the past. It's a new day. And so we are going to enforce the law. It is the law, so we are going to enforce it. And we would appreciate that you assist us, you cooperate with us. And it is for our safety, for everybody's safety, for a safer St. Lucia. Okay? The criminal code specifically protects worship and burial settings from certain forms of disturbance. The best policing response is often prevention, partnership, proportionate enforcement. Churches should have a written event safety protocol and one police liaison. So having one person again avoids confusion. So you have Answer A, you can choose to have Inspector Jones or Sergeant Emmanuel, whichever one the committee decides will be the safety liaison. You have Inspector Fauché using Castries. I am not certain who will be appointed, and like I said, I know the sergeant, the administrative sergeant at Central Police Station has been tasked with getting the information for all the cemeteries in the different parishes, and for us to establish our liaisons. And we have Inspector Byron. I guess he has already established himself with Father Festus, because he says he gets the letters even though he gets it on the same day, but he gets it. So that's a start, and that's wonderful. And he says it works. So I guess that's evidence that the suggestion has merit. Okay. So, protect the worship, protect the grieving, protect the community. Do you believe that we can do that? Of course we can. And we know it's going to be hard in the beginning because, like Mr. Byron said, culture is something that is difficult to change. And we have realized that there is a culture of the consumption of alcohol and the smoking of cannabis when we have this type of gatherings. And even if it's going to be hard, we must not give up, because consistency will provide results in the end.
No, we would say, except for the fact that Father Festus writes and the station is alerted, but we kept on saying that call the police, call the police. My question is really one of timing. How long does it take after, in the middle of an incident, that we call the police and they are to be there at the right time, when people are angry and things have started happening? Yeah, timing is important because you have traffic to deal with and all those kinds of things. How do you deal with that?
It is true that there are some things that are beyond our control. For example, we call the police is 5 minutes away, but because of all what's going on between the time the police gets the call and they actually respond, the time will extend to maybe an hour. Yes, but proactive approaches can help minimize that occurrence. So the police has already been informed that there is an event. The police has already put things in place to respond to anything that may arise. They would have already put periodical patrols in place so that the officers can go around and, see who's causing a problem or who's likely to cause a problem because of how they are gathered and what they have with them. They can see any state of alcohol and stop it right away. So that's where the proactive approach comes into place to help with this specific situation.
Well, let's hear it. So we will do as usual. We will come this way for questions, and don't wait until officer has completed the response for you to move from your seat, but line up and stand up a little bit. This stretch will be good for a little exercise on circulation.
Yesterday, we were reminded that the liturgy finishes in the cemetery when it comes to funeral. So in terms of the person who has the moral authority and should have the legal authority. Just as someone cannot come into a church and interfere with me as a priest, I'm protected by law. That should extend to the cemetery.
It does.
So there should be some kind of a PR work done between the church and the police to let the public know that if I, as a priest, if a speaker, say, hello, silence please, or my service continued, I have the authority. And if we can do that kind of PR, the public will begin to understand that as long as the priest is there and the service is going on, that he has the authority.
You wanted to say something?
No, just saying the cemetery is an extension of the church.
Yes.
What I have done in the past, officer, and which needs to be done again, years ago I circulated those 5 sections of the criminal code to all the parishes, but I do not know what they did with them. I suggest that I will circulate them again, but put them up on your notice boards in bold prints. When I went to Rosalie and I had the encounter with the police to let them know what we were having, I gave him the copy of the criminal code, and it's actually on a board in the newer section of the cemetery in Rosalie. So as you walk in, you will see it there. The only thing is that mine was outdated, but it's to 2004, and now we have it reviewed. My one disappointment, though, is that the penalty was not increased. Yeah, it's still at $1,000, yeah?
Yes,
from 2004.
yes,
yeah?
Yes.
But I think that's one proactive thing we can do when we receive it, put it up on our churches in bold print so that the public will have access to it. Secondly, I would think that when we see a certain mood, because every funeral attracts a certain crowd of people, when we see a certain type of people, I think we should read those articles of the code in church and let them know that we have the protection of the law, not only in the church, but on the road and in the cemetery. So if people know that and they know the fines that are associated with that offense and the possible imprisonment, then people will know that there is a law. So we can't leave it to the police only, we have to do our work. So I will circulate it again and then do the necessary. Post it on your notice board, speak about it, even at the Sunday service. Yeah? Take some time to explain it, because that's when you have a captive audience. And then when you suspect there is a crowd that may not be your usual, and you don't wait until it happens, read out the elements of the code to them so that they are aware that we have a right to exercise our liturgical duty without interruption. Yeah?
Yes,
Anything else?
Yes. Actually, I have a guide. It is something new, so we can work on it to better it, but it's a quick reference guide as to the sections of law that apply under different circumstances. Also, there is a checklist as to what should happen before, during, and after. So I can give you a copy and we can liaise later on and look at it and see, okay, whether this is something that we can adopt or we can work on fine-tuning it to suit our circumstances and so on. So.
Okay, 2 questions. One, the concern that Deacon had brought up earlier about not seeing the officer, and you mentioned that typically the officer is in plain clothes. Is it possible for the plainclothes officer to make himself known to the minister? So therefore, at least the minister himself is aware, okay, I see all these people in the crowd, I know who the officer is.
Yes, it's definitely possible.
Okay. And the second thing, you mentioned about understanding culture and the culture of consumption of alcohol, etc.
However, the larger issue is a culture of lawlessness. And the reality is that most people believe even if they break the law, they won't be punished. And we have seen instances, regular instances, where enforcement, especially in some of the most basic laws, when you look at Castries downtown, how people park, causing all sorts of traffic congestion, they're regularly done. And Castries downtown is probably the most patrolled of all sectors. The loud music disturbances, more and more guys have come speakers, and most times they pass patrolling officers with the music. So I'm grateful that the laws are on the books, but the general concern with most people, and especially if you find yourself in a dangerous situation, is how enforced are these things going to be?
I will not argue with you that some of your points are valid, but like I said, we are looking forward and not backwards, so we have to come together right now and ensure that we do what we have to do, and that falls for the police as well. So it is something that I will definitely bring back, that we have been admonished for not doing what we're supposed to be doing. So let's not let it happen again, right? But in terms of the lawlessness, the culture of lawlessness and so on, I think it also underpins the comment that I made, that it's going to be difficult. In the beginning, you will get the resistance, because even when the police try to enforce, you would still get individuals saying, hey, but I'm not doing anything, why are you troubling him? So we will get that we are, resisted even by individuals who have not engaged for their actions. So somebody might just be sitting observing, and when the police engages the offender, the person who's observing will now get involved and say, oh, but leave the man alone, he's not doing anything. But then he's clearly breaking the law. And sometimes it's the smallest law that we break. When we keep breaking it, escalates into the bigger one. So we'll definitely take your point, bring it back home, and aspire to work on it.
But to add to what Umar just asked, we have a number of schools in the city, and those loud boxes pass through the city while classes are going on.
It's definitely, I said it here today, you need permission to operate loudspeakers, so it is for us to now ensure that we enforce the laws that already exist.
You said a while ago that the police are supposed to be, or should be, in uniform or not in uniform. At what time should the police be there when there's a funeral? Whether they're supposed to be there before, and how long are they supposed to be at the funeral service? And if there's a repast after reception, sometimes a lot of alcohol is being served. Is the police supposed to be there to the end of the reception?
The repast would be after the service, it would be away from the church.
There are some
right,
places
so
that we have
so, pardon?
There are some places, some parishes that have parish halls, and we rent those places for the people.
So whoever is holding the repast would have to be the one to ensure that security measures are put in place. Yes?
So in other words, they may have to hire the services of the police.
So they can engage the police. I think different people have different levels of how they deal with the situation, because certain areas, the police who's manning that area probably had a good relationship with the neighbors and the neighborhood, and so they may say, okay, it is just close to the station, they'll just cast an eye and so on. But in terms of taking the officers away from their duties to stand and man the private, because it is a private event, it comes, yes, with certain conditions.
Just a few suggestions on how to help ourselves and also help the police officers. The first year I went to Masha. It was a little bit difficult conducting funerals there, but with time, you know, I learned how to manage some of these issues. And I think over 2 years now, I have not had issues. No matter the kind of funeral I have, everything is okay. And what I do, I engage the families when they come to prepare for funerals. So I already know what the funeral will look like. So from day one, I begin to learn how to manage it. If it's a murder situation, the letter will be in their office. Secondly, I have my ladies in my church, so some funerals, some death, I may not have good knowledge about them. They call me. They say, Father, first I see that funeral today might be a little bit chaotic. And that's when he gets the letter impromptu. Thirdly, before I begin the funeral, I use some theological, spiritual teachings to control the environment. I actually manage the environment of the church, from the church to the cemetery. I manage the environment, and no matter how radical they came, before they leave, they would have calmed down. So you need to manage your environment. You need to study what is happening and how can I control my space. Even in the cemetery, before I begin, some bit of laughter and encourage them. Let's give her, the final goodbye. Even if you cannot sing, just stay around me, be quiet. They respect it. They keep quiet, and I do my due and leave them alone.
Thank you, Father. And that just reminded me that I actually had one of my documents was a contract, a suggestion of a contract that the church can have with members of the family that they can commit to. So in the contract it will state what behaviors are not allowed and so on, and what is expected of them. So that's one other thing that we can explore, because like Father says, if you speak to the family can influence the behaviors. So if you speak to them beforehand and you clearly outline what the expectations are, more than likely you will get that they will pass it on to the others and everything will go, if not smoothly, but better than it would have in the absence of the intervention prior to.
I know our session more or less deals with funeral, but also we have other religious events taking place. And you write to the police. You ask for them to come and assist with traffic management. And you want to start your activity, you wait, you don't see them, but you have to start. And your activity goes on and you still don't see them. Now I find that disrespectful. Because we want to work together. I know I cannot just go on the road and have a procession. I write so that you can assist me. And I think we need, in partnership, we need to work well with each other. And the activity session tonight, I think we can go a little further and try and see how we can educate the St. Lucian public about all work that we are discussing.
Yes, I agree with the education. It will help greatly in the behaviors, the conducts that people display during services, whether it's funeral or just church service. It will help. In terms of the police and writing for assistance, I'm aware that there is a process, there is a timeline that you have to follow, and sometimes the document may just not have reached the final place that it's supposed to ensure that the police officers are dispatched. I'm not making excuses, but I have seen it happen that the documents get to the place maybe after the date has passed, or maybe just on the same day, on the same day, and sometimes by that time the police has already been deployed elsewhere and so on. But again, I will take the message home and reiterate that we are expected to assist when we are called upon, where time and circumstances allow us to.
Something that for churches that have their cemeteries close to, within walking distance, so, well, ancillary is right in the churchyard itself, but I'm thinking of Rosalie. Because you have a street from Massad that comes the way of the cemetery, and then you have another one by the school, where the police station was the center. What you find sometimes, the procession is going on and vehicles want to come through. So it appears that motorists are not aware that they have to respect those public processions. And I mean, in one case, I stopped the individual, and he asked me whether I am a traffic officer. And he actually knocked me. When I stopped in front of him, I knew my rights. He actually knocked me. But I wrote to the officer in charge, only to find out this person works with government, an engineer. And so when he was confronted, they asked him, I didn't want to press charges. So the officer asked whether I would want him to come to the office to see me. I said, no, I'll come to your office to meet him. So an educated man, an engineer who works with government, was not aware that it was against the law to disturb a procession. So, you know, I think we talk about education. I think that aspect has to be done. So let people know, you know, that it doesn't take long. In some cases, I would meet people coming and I would say, park on the side, they would. You know? But you see, if the police are there, and even if they are not present, but they can erect the street signs, so it means that during that period, there will be a no entry or no right turn. So the procession can go on without that kind of interruption. Yeah? You have a question.
Can I go already, or it's from the figure large?
No, just ask the question.
I think we all agreed that loud music is a distraction to us. Perhaps the question now is not just that is what is causing the distraction, but what practical changes can we take as a church to address. So I'm wondering, is that where the liaison officer would come in to notify or to remind the RSLPF perhaps every Friday afternoon that we will be having worship session on the Saturday evening, on the Sunday, so to put in measures, whether it's signs, like Monsignor said, or some notification to reverence, to protect the surrounding areas of the church.
The liaison, like I said earlier, the liaison officer would be informing the police of the events. So it's like the police will have a calendar of events, and they can manage the manpower and deploy where necessary to do periodical patrols erect signs where possible, and so on. And again, if they come across the offending party, there are laws that they can enforce. You operate a loudspeaker without a permit, without permission, the code allows the police to seize the equipment.
Right. So, with that being said, since we celebrate Holy Mass on a Saturday evening, as well as on a Sunday, especially, and even for funeral service, burials, for those events that are yearly or daily, does that mean that the liaison officer will have to always remind the officer to put up signs or notify the public? And how can we do it?
I don't believe that's something that happens regularly. Has to be
Because we have celebrate Mass every Sunday, every Saturday evening, and that's the situation that we face.
Okay. So, like I said, I do not believe that the police has to be reminded of something that happens regularly. Okay. So it is a matter of in these circumstances for the police to use their discretion and take the proactive approach rather than saying that the liaison officer didn't speak to me. But it is known that Mass is on a particular day at a particular time. In that event, the police can take the proactive approach. But for funeral services and so on, the liaison officer definitely would have to contact the police.
So that's your fault on a Sunday morning.
No. If you send a letter to them giving them the times, then they will act.
But it's here every Sunday.
Send the times to them. That's the point she's making.
My question to you, police officers, apart from us here, who is being educated, that's also life, what are the methods, what are the methods that will be used to educate the general public? And another thing is, I hear everybody talking about loud music, which is fact, it's disturbing. But what about those bikes?
Those what?
What the bikes? What is being done about those people? Because we can have this guy literally that's free for a fuse or something to just move. But with the bikes, something needs to be done.
The point is taken about the bikes.
But they actually come to the cemetery and they do
the release in the sun.
Yeah. Or if the service will end with cremation, they will do it right there in front of the church before the hearse leaves. The smoke is offensive. The noise is appalling.
So, in terms of one of the questions that he asked about what other means will we utilize to educate the public, we can have specific public service announcements about expected behaviors. We can use the different social media platforms. The social media is not always bad. We can use social media to our advantage. And if we have a partnership, we can put messages together that we can deliver to different audiences, right? We can use our official pages. The police can use their page. If the church has a page, the church can use the page. We can use the various social media apps out there. We can use the radio, the television. But again, it has to be specific to the issue that we are dealing with right now.
In fact, this is what I was going to suggest, that out of this school of liturgy, there should be a press conference between the church and the police, in which the public becomes aware that all of those burning issues were discussed, and that will be part of the education process that will begin. said something like what he mentioned about the cathedral, that the cathedral should be a zone of quiet. Sometimes you're trying to do a mass or trying to do a service there, and the noise of people with sound, not only by bikers, but trucks and all kinds of things happening. So I think a press conference after this week with the police, thanking the police for cooperation with the church, and raising all those issues, alcohol and all these things, so the public becomes aware of it. And then we can continue with the social media.
This is something that I will suggest to our hierarchy, our
Yes, I have two questions. I think the last speaker just spoke about what I wanted to say. Some countries that I have visited to see around the church, you see a notice, silent area. You don't make noise. If you are passing, music is just silent. And then the second question I want to ask, I don't know whether in public places there is time frame for noise, especially for those of us who stay around the beach in Fiji. Like yesterday night, I don't know where the young man came from with his speakers in his car from 1 till about 3:30. The music was just playing. I couldn't sleep. Where do I go to? I have to close my window because the environment was warm. I have to pull my window to help me out. Is there a way that the police can sensitize the public about that? Thank you.
Even when permission is given to operate loudspeakers and have events, there is a timeline. Usually 2 a.m. they are cut off. So even without a permission being granted or whatever, we have to use our discretion and respect people's peace.
But you would have thought that when you get to a certain time, let's say around midnight, that the volume should be toned down until you get to that 2 o'clock hour when, because in a community you have the elderly, you have the sick, you have children who have to go to school, and if they're going to be disturbed right through the night, you know?
Agreed.
Yeah. And hold a second, because Deacon Douglas, come. Deacon Douglas wanted to get a clarification regarding a homicide case. Should there be viewing of a homicide case in church? It's not done. Deacon? Is it being done? Because it's not my experience. If it is to be done, it's supposed to be done at the funeral home. Or they can take the body to their own homes, but not in the church.
They have been demanded that it be done.
No.
That's what is happening at Liturgy. A demand that it be done.
No, okay. Okay, but then it goes back to what Father Festus was saying. When the family comes to plan the funeral, they need to be told, are you with me?
Yes.
They need to be told that, listen to me well, the family needs to be told that there is not going to be a viewing in church, under no circumstance whatsoever. So that any viewing that is to be done, take the people whom they want to view to the funeral parlor, the funeral home, because no viewing is going to be done. And I think an announcement should be made in church, because you see people gather. So an announcement should be made in church that there is not going to be a viewing, so take your seats. In that way, you de-escalate. Not so, officer?
Yes.
So you settle them down. But I think on principle, there should be no viewing in the church. Because, and not only for situations of homicides, but even suicides, and also accidental deaths, you know. And people, I have literally seen people jump on the shoulders of other people at the cathedral to view. So I think those cases, we should just tell the family no viewing whatsoever, do it at the funeral home. If they want to see the family, I think every funeral home now provides a photo. Put the photo on the casket and let them view there, okay? But I think that's a principle we should adopt, but it should come from the office, from the time of the preparation of the funeral service.
Going back to the noise complaint, I live at VG, so I experience this a lot. And apparently one of my neighbors is His Grace. So His Grace is experiencing the situation too. This morning at after 3 minutes to 4, I don't know if the person was experiencing a heartbreak, but we had some very loud heartbreak songs at 3 o'clock this morning. And it went on until about, maybe 6 o'clock, because it kept waking the residents up. And not only do you have, that coming in to play the music, the bikes again, and we have cars now. So about 11 o'clock at night time, we have people that decide it's nice for them to see how fast their car goes on the John Compton Highway and the VG stretch. And this is, to me, I know the traffic department is supposed to be on the John Compton Highway, which means they're hearing the vehicles too. And it's a serious concern. After a certain hour, there's somebody keeps posting it in the VG group chat, some noise, something act, but nobody is acting on the act.
All right, okay, in terms of the noise pollution in VG.
You want to take the mic?
As a matter of fact, just before I came to this meeting, I received a document from the Commissioner of Police to deal with that situation. There is a number I would have to contact. So in the upcoming days, this matter will be dealt with by us. The Commissioner is aware of it, and he sent a memo to my office. So it will be dealt with.
In terms of the viewing, the funeral homes have welcomes. When they come to the church, the coffin or the casket is wheeled way up to the altar, so there is no viewing.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. When there is not going to be a viewing, in the case of accidental death and homicide, suicide, once people see that the coffin, the casket is not at the entrance of the church, but way up to the front by the altar, then they know there's not going to be a viewing. So maybe that's a policy we could have done, which I have done already when I was at the cathedral. So that is a signal to them there is not going to be any viewing. So which means to say that the receiving of the body takes place up there. And there is no procession to wheel it up to the front. That is a sign, a signal to the people there is not going to be a viewing. So maybe that is something we could adopt across the board and to give that signal to the people. Yeah? Yeah.
Talking about laws, is there a law against people under normal circumstances touching the body? Yeah, so I just want to find out. They get emotional, and they touch the body, they cry, they touch all the person's face. Is there a law against that? Because it's very dangerous, isn't it? The chemicals used.
I don't think there is a law, but there should be a code not to touch because of the chemicals that are used to clean and prepare the body. So, but the thing is, let's face reality. I had the funeral of a young man in Rosalie. That was a case of the young man who went to that lady at the Friday night activity and told her, my friend said he likes to see you. And she threw her drink in his face. So he went to buy a drink and threw it back in his face, in her face. That happened on Friday. On Tuesday afternoon, he was dead. Because two people came on a bike and they stopped him out. So I had that funeral. The police were present, thank God. The mother was blind. His mother was blind, or is blind. And for her to identify her son, what did she have to do? You think I would tell the mother, don't do it? She's blind. So in a way, exceptions have to be made. Maybe what I could have told her is say, Mom, make sure you wash your hands or you sanitize your hands after. But that's all she could have, that's how she could have seen him. Okay? So we have to exercise a certain kind of pastoral sensitivity as well. Under normal circumstances, no. But depending on the nature of death, sometimes we have to step back and probably advise that mother or whomever to say, make sure you wash your hands properly afterwards before you make contact with your eyes, your nose, and so on. Yeah? On that day in question, when I came, people, and I was disturbed by that, young people with bottles of alcohol at the cemetery and drinking. Men who were smoking. And here's what I said, and people were standing on tombs. So I said, kindly get up the people souls for me. Secondly, there is, while cannabis has been decriminalized, but it does not give you the right to smoke it publicly, and we are being disturbed. Could you kindly extinguish your cigarettes? I have no problems. And I said, thirdly, there is not going to be any pouring, and I think Father Albert referred to that on Tuesday. There's not going to be any pouring of alcohol on this casket, in that tomb, or on that tomb. And the mother said, thank you, Father. And everything went smoothly. And for those who were drinking, I said to them, rather than pouring on the tomb after the burial is over, I would suggest you gather around, if you are his friends, gather around the tomb, say a prayer for him, and raise a glass, and take it in, but don't pour it out. And it worked. So I think the manner in which it is done, so that you don't escalate, but you de-escalate, it worked for me well on that day. Yeah? So it's a situation we're going to be confronted with, but if we do the PR by posting those elements of the criminal code in our churches, we speak about them at our Sunday masses, and when we see a funeral that may not go too well, when we see the kind of characters that this funeral has attracted, we can already do preemptive work by reading elements of the code and to let people know the law protects us. Yeah? And Father Fester said, he has CID people in plain clothes and as parishioners who will call him and say, Father, you see that funeral? We need those kinds of people in the parish because we don't always know the individuals. We need you in the parishes to alert us as to what kind of case it is. Because sometimes we don't know the people at all. When they come to the office, they don't disclose what the situation may be to us. Yeah? So you need to alert us as to what is going on with regarding those deaths. Yeah.
A lot of good advice, Father. Certainly, I believe you're an expert at the escalation.
Experience of all different sorts, yeah?
So it does work, and I believe if we try to apply it across the board, we will see some improvements. I take all the points that have been made. I understand that individuals in VG may have an issue, but Inspector Koshe has given us some reassurance that this matter will be looked into. And I hope when we do meet again, we can sing praises for the effort that he will be putting in place.
So we've come to the end of our session, and Trevor will say thanks to the officers on our behalf. I took him by surprise.
We wish this School of Liturgy of 2026 wish to thank you officers for your contribution here today. And clearly you went into a whole range of matters very important, and I'm pretty sure there are many more. I from other questions which I've chosen not to ask, but nonetheless. So this is a broad topic which deserves a lot of elucidation, and probably have established some framework here where we're going to be taking this forward. Much appreciated. Thank you very much to all of you, contingent officers from the various districts or stations.
You are very welcome, and thank you for having us. I am sure I can speak on behalf of the other members of the team that it was a pleasure being here. Not the part where you're saying we're not doing what we're supposed to, but all the other parts. But we take the criticism and we'll work on it until we have another forum. I wish everyone all the best. Better services, less disturbed in the services in the future.
So this evening has been one that is different to all the others. And when we look at our time, it's approaching 8 o'clock. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to close with our prayer and blessing, but then you will take your break and your dismissal from there. However, please remember to patronize our little canteen, because what is happening there is to help one of the choir members at the cathedral who is a cancer patient. Yeah? So please patronize. Thank you very much. So, Father, Grace. You are looking for somebody. Where is Father Felix?
Father Felix, could you come forward? Say a prayer and do the blessing.
I'll give him this mic. Come this way. Yeah, it's already on.
Lord, just especially thank you for all the blessings and graces that you have received us and giving us to today, especially through these talks, through this conference. We have come together to do your ministry in the right manner, according to the law of our country. Thank God for all the resource persons. They will share us, they guide us with the thoughtfulness, with the proper direction. Once again, we thank you, glorify your name, for all the guidance that you're showing us every day of our life. Help us, Lord, to carry out our ministries in such a way which is worthy of you and which is pleasing you forever. Making our prayer to Christ our Lord.
Amen. The Lord be with you.
And with us.
And may the blessing of the Almighty God, the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit come down upon you and remain with you forever.
Amen.
Go forth in peace.
Thanks be to God. So tomorrow we assemble at the usual time.